Abraham Maslow, the creator of the famous Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he once said, "If I were dropped out of the plane into the ocean and told the nearest land was 1,000 miles away, I would still swim, and I would despise the one who gave up." In light of the recent events and what appears to be coming on the horizon, sayings like this, they really help me keep in perspective why I do what I do. And it's so easy to get overwhelmed by the bad news out there. All news, mainstream media or otherwise, is typically centered around telling you what's wrong with the world. Some of it is intended to make you angry and anxious, but all of it rarely provides you with really any actionable solutions. If you can call it news, the news today that we get offers really little information, typically repeats itself about every 15 minutes, and it never leaves you with any solutions. If you were to turn on the internet, you'll find many people with an agenda, misinformed, or willfully spreading rumors and lies. There are whole sub-industries of the internet that's dedicated explicitly to reputation management, suppressing facts, and obfuscating truths. And you'll see that in full effect with every election cycle, if you know what I mean. And it's easy to get distracted on the internet. It's easy to feel like we are potentially not seeing the bigger picture and missing something in our endeavors. And it's easy to get angry or upset that others don't see the world the way we do. And it's easy to get lost down the rabbit holes or lost in the never-ending cycles of awful news with ever more alarming headlines. So, what do we do to keep ourselves out of the rabbit holes? What can we do to stay focused on the preps we need to put in place to really leverage the best possible outcome in the future? Well, my solution is always to focus on the first two basic and foundational needs in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs: physiological safety and love and belonging. Our physiological needs are at the bottom. It's air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, and reproduction. Now, if these base needs aren't being met, none of the higher needs can be met. You can probably see the crossover into prepping. While most people take these needs for granted or feel turmoil and stress because one or more of them isn't being met, the prepper is actively trying to build up long-term storage of food, water, shelter, and more. And the prepper recognizes that when one or more of these is lacking or even disappears, it will be their fault for not establishing an unshakable foundation. And the same is true for the next level up, the safety needs. Personal security, employment or work, resources, health, and property, they all have direct parallels to prepping. When disaster strikes, these first two levels are easily wiped out for most people, and they are so foundational that chaos is guaranteed as everyone scrambles to really regain them. And it's the third level of love and belonging that many of us strive for, and these are things like friendships, community, family, and having a sense of connection. And you may be part of a church group or a Facebook group or Reddit or simply vested in your family's safety. And there are some direct parallels between Maslow's hierarchy of needs and our everyday efforts to preps, for sure. But allow me to put this more straightforwardly. If you're finding yourself stressed out by the news cycle, turn it off and get to work. And don't worry. It will be there when you come back, repeating itself just like it did every 15 minutes. And if the people around you stress you out, make you anxious, or are accusatory, or don't want to deal with you unless you are equally outraged at the world, leave them for a moment and focus on what you need to do. They'll still be there attacking windmills like Don Quixote when you return to them. You have to focus on the work at hand. The stresses, anxiousness, and anxieties, they're going to fade into the background when you do this. And this is what I personally do. I can't sit and stare at the problem. The key is to move and act now. I was fortunate last week. I was able to put some time aside and spend time with my parents. They flew in from out of town, and I haven't been able to see them in a couple of years. And the thing is now that they're gone, I'm getting back in the swing of things, and the doom and gloom still here front page when I came back to it. I took the time to be with them. I logged out of my messengers and avoided the internet and media for the most part. I didn't really miss anything when I returned to it, but I gained a better and more grounded sense of peace. And where I live, the lowest nightly temperature this month will be around 48 degrees and the highest about 95 degrees. And it's essential that at this time I turn my attention to the garden. So my wife and I, well, if I'm being honest, primarily my wife has been out there turning soil, tending the plants that are carrying over, and planting new plants. And we've been tending to our chickens and spending time with our family. Unfortunately, over the last few months, I've gained a few pounds since I did a marathon back in October. So it's at this time that I've been focusing on exercising and getting as healthy as possible. And I want to make my world around me more robust and better capable of handling the challenges that might come at me from beyond the horizons. And I have no control over what happens next, but I do have control over what I can do now, which is why I focus on getting ready. You see, we can't change today's course, but we can build a better future for ourselves. When the power goes out or certain foods become in scarcity, we can be ready to meet those challenges. And we can't alter humanity's course, but we can guide our future by prepping for a clearer and more stable future by becoming more self-sufficient, more knowledgeable, and stronger as a family. And this brings calm to our lives that is the opposite of the hype media, the conspiracies, the misinformation, and the anxieties about what is coming. If I could ever impart one thing to you, it would be to do the same. Don't let the world's problems spin around you. Don't make them part of the gravity by sitting and letting them surround you and suffocate you. Instead, make the things in your gravity family, friends, community, and action. And you can't prevent lockdowns in Shanghai or change the dynamics of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict from your spot in the world. I mean, you can only do so much to contribute to the positive change in those areas. It's the difference between sending seeds to someone or planting your own garden. You're better served by unplugging every now and then from the world's worries and focusing on doing for yourself part of this all. If you followed this channel for any amount of time, you will know that I sometimes quote that famous line from Voltaire's Candide, "We must cultivate our garden." And the main character of that novel really comes to this conclusion after being thrown out of his idyllic childhood, traveling around the world, befalling all manner of disasters, and then finally meets someone who has built their own sort of paradise on Earth. The world, it's in chaos right now, but that doesn't mean that our piece of it has to be. When we prep, when we build our portion of the world into a stable part of it, the world's troubles become less important to us. The things, they happen out there and not within our walls. As more people come to this realization, the better our world becomes. And prepping is really about doing it. In some ways, it's a grassroots movement not to forget our independence, to not surrender our independence by turning to the old ways of self-sufficiency and combining them with the modern advantages, such as tools and accumulated knowledge. It used to be that if you wanted to learn how to store food properly, make soap or candles, cook, hunt, fish, or whatever, you had to seek someone out and actually learn from them in person. In some ways, you're still doing that. But you can now do that from the comfort of your easy chair and not by traveling miles away and hoping to get the attention of a single person. The internet, it can provide you with hundreds of practical videos, and hopefully my channel does that for you. And I would encourage you to go ahead and watch the horizon to know what gloom and doom lurk out there. But if it's all stressing you out or making you anxious, maybe it's time to implement the most essential part of your prepping, which is the practice. Put these principles and explain concepts into practice in large and small ways. Get up and get busy doing something. You've heard it said to be the change you want to see in your world, but it's important to realize that your world is what's around you now. It's the immediate, not the looming. It's what you can survey with your eyes and not as much what you hear rumored to be happening hundreds or thousands of miles away from you. Put your prepping into practice. If you're already doing some prepping, take it to the next level by focusing on the preps, the skills and knowledge that are going to immediately impact the world immediately around you. And don't let the news, social media, or arguments of others suck away your energy and focus. I would encourage you to assess where you are with your preps and determine where you want to be. Set some goals and then work with a plan to get there. If there's one thing that is certain about the future, it is that it will change the status quo. The new normal, whatever that's supposed to mean, is going to be whatever you prep it to be today. Get up and tune the bigger picture out from time to time to focus on the little picture of you and your family. And when you do this, you'll find that the little picture of you and your family's future is the absolute biggest picture of them all. I'll just end up by thanking you for being a part of the prepping community. When you focus on prepping for yourself, your family, your community, you may think you're only making yourself stronger. You are, but you're also making our world stronger. You're also lessening the impact of the world on yourself and your community. Bad things, they're going to happen. And they always have and they always will, and they may very well get worse and worse in the future. And your actions today, they help to lessen our overdependence on systems that will ultimately fail. Your actions today make the world a stronger and better place, and that's why I encourage you to get up and keep prepping. As always, stay safe out there.